Welcome to FRCMedia News. I'm Keith Tebow. We're going to take a break from our normal show today and use this episode to take a look back at the top news stories in Fall River in 2020. Now, we all know that this has been a year unlike any other. Never did I think that I'd be hosting this show from an office in my home rather than our studio at Bristol Community College. I'm sure all of you have similar stories at how you've adapted to what is now our new normal. And speaking of new normal, that's been part of our 2020 vocabulary, hasn't it? Along with coronavirus and COVID, social distancing, pandemic, quarantine, shutdown, PPE, Zoom, mask up, and so much more. We'll cover much of this over the course of our show. The new year began with city government finally getting past the cloud of scandal that surrounded former Mayor Jazel Correa. Paul Coogan, who won a convincing election victory over Mayor Correa the previous November, took the oath of office for mayor with a call for stability and cooperation.
We have had the distinction of having 8 mayors in 12 years, and despite these changes, little seemed to change. Our politics became more and more heated and personal, and we simply lost our focus. While we were distracted by politics, other very important issues like the opioid crisis, crime, infrastructure, taxes were not receiving the required attention. It was unfortunate, but that is all in the rearview mirror now, and it's time we all moved on. There's an old saying in Fall River, the next election begins the day after the last one. This can't continue. This failed outlook we must abandon. The people of this city demand that we focus on the issues, and they expect all of us to work together as a team. And even when we disagree, we would do so with respect for each other. What begins today is the serious business of governing, not politicking. You have my commitment to work for all of you with passion, honesty, openness, and as a member of our team. Elected officials are not and cannot be opponents in competition with each other's. The oath we took today is what is best for the city of Fall River, not what is best for ourselves. As for me, I took a solemn oath to serve you, and I'm not looking for money, power, or fame. I have no higher political aspirations, and I don't have a lot of personal ego. While I never take myself too seriously, I will take this job extremely seriously.
Along with changes on the 6th floor, there were some new faces on the city council. Trot Lee, Christopher Peckham, and Michelle Dion took their place in Government Center. Councilor Lee became the first African American to win a seat on the council.
It's something that we knew when we ran, in the beginning, when I first ran, that there wasn't much of that at all, if any, diversity when it came to that. So I do appreciate the fact that it wasn't looked at in this election, that they just looked at me as a person, and I appreciated that because it was a predominantly, obviously, white electorate. So I just appreciate that. I appreciate that that wasn't a thing.
Returning to the city council after a 2-year hiatus was Councilor Linda Pereira. On the school committee, Mimi Larrabee took her seat as that body's newest member. We began hearing news in January of a new virus originating in China. Soon it became apparent that infections would not be confined to the Far East. Cases began surfacing in the United States in February. People in Fall River were concerned, but hoped the virus would be short-lived.
Well, we have to make the best of it, so we need to get outside, fresh air, take advantage of the sun, and stay out and about and as healthy as we can. I have older parents, so I've been staying away from them, making sure that they're good every day, checking in, seeing if they need anything. And we have to do the best to go on and live our life like we're living every day. There's a lot of media. It's 24/7, depending what channel you're watching. All the channels are talking about it. And we can get caught up in all the negativity and into the panic of what's going on. So you kind of have to look at it from all angles. Yes, there's a virus. We have viruses every single year, all year long. So we just need to take caution and just keep that in mind. And hopefully it'll end as fast as it came.
States started taking action in March, and on the 10th, Massachusetts Governor Charlie Baker issued a state of emergency, leading to the shutdown of much of the Commonwealth.
At this time, the number of people infected and requiring medical attention is very much within our healthcare system's capacity. The number of people in isolation and sick right now has minimal impact on commerce. The purpose of moving forward with these measures now is to act before the numbers increase to a point where the virus spread is severely impacting the Commonwealth. The highly contagious nature of this disease means that if everyone plays their part in slowing the spread, the number of people who become infected and require medical attention doesn't spike all at once, which would overwhelm many of our systems. We understand that asking people to change their habits, cancel some events, and cancel travel is inconvenient, and we also understand that it comes with a financial impact. But waiting to act and allowing infections and the subsequent number of people who need medical attention to spike all at once will not only severely hamper our hospital's ability to care for patients, but will have a far greater economic impact as well. We believe it's important to start taking more aggressive action now to mitigate spread based on the information we have available. There's no question that the efforts to mitigate the spread of this virus will be disruptive. We expect this disruption to continue for the foreseeable future and understand it will cause inconvenience for many. But our goal needs to be to significantly increase efforts to mitigate the spread of this disease now.
A few days later, Mayor Coogan took control in Fall River, shutting down Government Center and beginning the city's effort in dealing with what was to come.
We need everyone in the city to reach out to other people, your neighbors, keep an eye out for our children on the streets, call an elderly neighbor. We will all help to take the steps necessary to protect Fall River right now. This is a very important fight. I've never seen anything like it in my entire career, and we have a lot of work to do as a city to make sure we keep everyone safe. The declaration of a state of emergency in Fall River, which we declared today, that allows us to get some additional federal support down the road, and it also puts us on the same wave as a number of cities and towns in Massachusetts. Government Center will be closed to the public starting tomorrow. We have a number of ways that we can help you. We're going to give you some contact phone numbers, but you can pay a lot of your bills online, and we're still going to be here working. We're just not going to have the public in for a few days. We'll see how it plays out. Parking enforcement will remain the same during the next 2 weeks. Permitting and code enforcement can be issued via the city's website. Fire prevention, DPW, fire prevention will be taking a pause for a couple weeks. The DPW will remain active during the next 2 weeks. City inspectors from all the departments, including inspectional services, water, fire, will be conducting inspections in private homes in emergency situations. Public safety, including police, fire, EMS, will continue without disruption.
Local schools closed down immediately, shifting the April vacation break and working toward fully remote instruction for the remainder of the school year. For the city's public schools, Superintendent Matthew Malone made it clear the need to adapt was necessary, but remote instruction did not provide the same learning experience for all students.
And we've proven, that school can be done on a device now, right? Which is when you think about disruptive technologies and how crisis creates opportunity and disruption, the future is going to look very differently. But the one thing that everyone misses is social connection, and that's what schools do. So you can't make up for what happens in a classroom on Zoom. You can't try to recreate what it means to be part of an athletic team or the band or part of a play on TikTok. It's just not the same. Our unsung heroes right now are really what we call the essential employees, the operations that make everything happen. So our food service people, our security, our custodians, our technological support staff, our payroll people, our clerks, you name those folks, they're doing great work right now. Our frontline professionals, our teachers, our paras, our SPED support staff, our ELL specialists, our content people, They're making sure that all the stuff that kids are doing at home with parents is getting done. So they created the units. They help administer the units. Now they're making contacts every single day with families, both on the academic and the social emotional side, and providing services, whether that be through phone call, through technology, through whatever medium.
Teaching remotely became a challenge, but some came up with creative ways to connect with their students. Two physical education teachers at the Analyst charter school decided the best way to interact with their students was to take their class on the road.
We collaborated the idea with National Physical Education Week, and we started on that Wednesday during that week because it was also National Bike to School Day, where many students would bike to school. And so instead I said, you know what, we're just going to bike to our students. And so we hit the road, and sure enough, we did Somerset and Swansea first, and it was a great hit. Right away, the first student's house we went to, she had decorated her front door and left us little Gatorades and goodie snacks for the ride. And we knew right away that this was like the right thing to do, and that we needed to check in on all of our students and make sure they're okay.
Students and teachers began adapting to a new learning model, but that was not enough. Many students rely on school for food each day, and the school district responded with this program at Cuss Middle School and others, serving hundreds of meals for free to any child in the city.
Here at the school, we see about between 80 to 100, but then we prepare everything here at the school, and we have the guys take it over to the parks, and they just distribute to the kids there. We do two parks. We do the Griffin Park, which is about 175 meals that we prepare a day, and we do the Abbott Court, and that one we prepare about 75 to 100. We do just Cuss in the two parks for now. We start serving at 11:30 and it runs till 1:30. But the most traffic we get here is between 11:30 to about 12:30. Right now it's a breakfast and two lunches. It is one per student, 18 and under. Basically, that's what we're serving, is 18 and under. We're serving up till Thursday because it's Good Friday on Friday, so we're not open on Friday. But we do send the kids meals home with the kids, more meals, just so they can have for the weekend. On Thursday would be more meals, correct.
Extra for the Friday.
Yes, for Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. And then on the last day, it just so happens that it's going to be Thursday of this week. But usually on a Friday, we'll send them home with extra meals and breakfast so they can have for the weekend until they get back to get more lunches.
The pandemic put a hold on many government and other civic activities. Income tax filings were delayed, and people were given time to renew driver's licenses and registrations until later on in the spring. The Fall River Public Library and senior centers were closed. Courts were also closed. City Council and other public meetings were being held remotely on Zoom. The shutdown also put a halt on what had been a very strong economy, both locally and across the country. We spoke with the co-CEOs of the One South Coast Chamber, who remained hopeful in March that local businesses would survive with federal help.
But fortunately, we're in a market that people, everybody's working together, which is good, and everybody's looking out for each other. And hopefully this federal stimulus package that is supposed to be approved and then signed by the president any day, hopefully that will be able to help people as well. We're just talking about, and probably in the next few days, we'll be getting into, setting up webinars, virtual networking sessions where we're talking about, where we try to bring on speakers who can talk about exactly how to apply for the SBA loans, what works, what doesn't, what information people need in order to be able to get those loans, and what other options and alternatives are out there.
For many local businesses, the federal assistance was not enough and led to the layoff of employees. Unemployment in Fall River skyrocketed to over 24% in April, As the reopening progressed over the summer, people were rehired back to a point that the latest jobless numbers from November sit at 7.8%, still below the 3.9% rate of 2019. There were some local businesses that bucked the trend and were able to shift focus and help in battling the pandemic. Merrow Manufacturing in Fall River was one of them. CEO Charlie Merrow says his company saw an opportunity to produce PPE at a time when local healthcare and others needed it, hiring more employees in the process.
When the COVID crisis started, Merrow was uniquely positioned to be able to design and develop very quickly technical product. And we realized that we were able to build a remarkable set of isolation gowns that we think are technically better than what's been on the market previously. So this company has done an extraordinary job in the last 30 days of moving from a design development and capacity planning stage to a production stage where we're now building several 100,000 gowns a week. We're working as a hub of part of 7 factories right now, and we've hired 41 people in the last week. And interestingly, we're the largest consumer of raw goods in this category of product right now. So we've opened up 2 mills who were closed for the pandemic because of our throughput. So I'm very proud of the team here, and I'm extraordinarily grateful for the support that we've had in the community for what we've done.
We soon began to learn about the physical impacts of COVID-19. We spoke with Tiverton resident Barbara Beckman. Both she and her husband contracted the disease early on, experiencing moderate symptoms.
The main symptoms were really the cough, the fever, and the fatigue. The fatigue is just unbelievable. I never had anything like that. And it takes a long, long time to come back. The cough was not that nerve-wracking. I had that fairly mild, but it took a long time to really go completely away. It was clearly not, the body aches were pretty severe too, but they were only a couple of days, and I responded well to just regular pain medication. So that helped. But then I couldn't do anything. I was just so fatigued. I was laying in bed, no appetite, and just waiting for the days go by. So that was the difference about this before. And you were nervous because you didn't know what to expect. And every day you thought, okay, I made it through another day. I'm good. And I was really lucky. I was just laying low and waiting it out. I didn't have major fever. It didn't settle on my lungs. I live in a house with my husband. I could quarantine. I could open the windows. I had fresh air, but it's not like the flu. It was not like the flu. And looking back, I think the hardest for me really was the fatigue.
Coping emotionally and psychologically from the effects of the pandemic also proved to be a challenge.
This is trauma. We're all experiencing trauma, pretty severe trauma at very different levels. And the other thing that we're experiencing as individuals and as a society is a lot of grief. And that often we're not aware of that. We're aware of the anxiety. We might be aware of sadness, but we're not aware of the grief. And grief is hard on the body and it changes us. And so how do we work with grief? Because there's been a lot of losses. For some of us, we have lost family members that have died in hospitals and we can't be next to them. I can't imagine anything worse than that. For some of us have been the loss of dreams, perhaps people who were planning their wedding and they had planned it for 2 years and they had to cancel it. Or many other losses, the loss of having a routine, of connecting, of seeing your children if they're adult children that don't live with you. All these are losses that we are experiencing every day, all of us. And that's going to take a long time to metabolize.
In times of stress, many sought out spiritual support. Local churches were closed at the onset of the pandemic, but still provided comfort to their congregations.
It's a kind of human nature that we tend to connect with God, even more so when we find ourselves in difficult situations like this. I remember when the Sunday following 9/11, there were more people in church than we see on a regular basis. The big difference between 9/11 and this pandemic is that at 9/11, people were just coming together to pray, and we were encouraging people, and we had all kinds of prayer services and mass, and people just came together. This time is just the opposite. We cannot come together. We cannot express our sorrows and our faith and our hope together. So we are necessarily being isolated, and that adds to the anxiety, to the fear, to the worries, to what people feel. So if the church can provide some form of solace and some form of encouragement and hope and presence and consolation for our people, even though we have to do mostly through electronic media, they need us, and they need to hear and to see what the church is doing on their behalf.
Prior to the pandemic, some city residents were struggling, earning wages well below the statewide average. When COVID hit, the need intensified. Federal stimulus checks and increased unemployment payments helped, but it was not enough. The United Way of Greater Fall River took the lead in helping organize the effort of local nonprofits in bridging the gap for as many local residents as possible.
We've really come together as a community, the nonprofit sector, our local government officials, statewide as well, business leaders and funders, and we've kind of formed what we're calling our own virtual MARC. And that is the Multi-Agency Resource Center, which is what they call a group that comes together to respond to disaster. We have collectively called ourselves United We Help Greater Fall River, and we are the community action group that's kind of bringing all of those partners together to assemble information in a very organized and cohesive manner. There's a lot of information almost being a deluge, we're deluged with it every day, and it's hard to sort of decipher what's fact, what's fiction. We're also, that group is also trying to decipher who's doing what, so that we're not duplicating effort, but rather we're coming together to create a stronger impact to assist our community and to do so safely. That is one of the priorities of this group because everybody wants to help. Everybody wants to sort of mobilize and get into action, but not knowing necessarily, the lifespan of the virus and how it, 6 feet, 20 feet, whatever the case may be. We want to make sure we're not doing more harm than good.
The United Way, along with the South Coast Community Foundation, raised thousands of dollars to support local food pantries and other organizations that are on the front lines in making sure local residents get by. As we moved along in the spring, more and more events got canceled. Seniors in the class of 2020 soon realized that they would not experience a traditional end of their high school career.
Senior year in itself, with or without the whole coronavirus situation, is already hard because you're saying bye to your lifelong friends and you're savoring your very last moments with them, particularly in this final 3 months that this is occurring during of senior year. This is when you want to be with your friends. This is when you want to savor the moments and have fun and see each other and go to sports events, like you said, and have events such as like Mr. Hilltopper is a well-known Durfee tradition, like prom, of course, stuff that we've looked forward to for so many years, and just being in each other's company, like in a classroom, even not even like anything extravagant. So that's definitely been among the hardest parts, is just not seeing each other. Of course, like you said, we're lucky to live in a time where we can stay connected through our phones, but it's not the same.
Original plans called for Durfee to hold a virtual graduation, but as restrictions eased over the summer, Durfee was able to hold a socially distant, in-person ceremony. Diamond Regional also held a graduation in person. As the weather warmed and people began wearing masks and adhering to social distancing, infections dropped. We began to flatten the curve. In late May, Governor Baker outlined a 4-phase plan on reopening businesses within the Commonwealth.
These first steps, manufacturing and construction, provided these businesses follow the guidance we've developed, have limited face-to-face and customer interactions. and many similar operations open now under the essential order have been responsibly balancing operating and fighting the virus as well. Starting a week from now, we're permitting office space to reopen to 25% of its capacity, except in Boston. On May 25th, retail establishments may also offer curbside service, and some personal services, such as barbershops and hair salons, may reopen, provided they follow the new rules in this report. Places of worship will also be permitted to open with guidelines in place starting today. A number of outdoor facilities and recreation activities may also resume starting a week from now, as well as in accordance with those new rules. And our healthcare facilities will be permitted to begin seeing more patients on an agreed-upon schedule over the next 2 weeks. This is not permanent. At some point, there will be treatments and ultimately a vaccine. But for the foreseeable future, everyone needs to continue to do the right things to bring the fight to the virus so that we can continue to move forward.
Government Center reopened in June, and the City Council was able to meet again in person at plexiglass-enclosed desks in council chambers. Local business activity picked up with restrictions. In June, for the first time in months, restaurants like the New Boston Bakery were welcoming back customers to dine outdoors and indoors.
Phase 2 we just opened up 2 days ago with, and it has also been a little quiet. I think maybe just the word not being out there as much yet. We just put it out on our Facebook and our website about it, but today seems actually like it's picked up a little bit more because of that. So I think as the word gets out there and people get accustomed to knowing it, I think it's going to pick up each day. One thing I never used to do, but I do now, is post what our daily specials are on Facebook and Instagram and things like that, and it has really dramatically changed business for the better. So people actually like that. So it's kind of something I didn't do prior to COVID, and I think it's something I should have done, and I'm glad I do it now.
In the middle of summer, local schools began discussing what the new year would look like. Options varied, with many private and parochial schools opting for a full in-person return. With Governor Baker stressing as much in-person instruction as possible, Fall River Public Schools came back on September 16th using a hybrid learning model encompassing 4 cohorts labeled A through D.
Over a 2-week, 10-day cycle, the future of learning starting this fall in the Fall River Public Schools is going to be built on these 2-week cycles. So in the 2-week cycle, students in cohort A would be in school face-to-face 8 out of the 10 days. Cohort B, 8 days virtual on the Fall River Flex Learn Academy, but 2 of those days check-ins and differentiated supports. Those are on Wednesdays. Cohort C and D again divided. Cohorts C and D will both hit 4 days face-to-face in the 10-day cycle, with 2 days of the differentiated remote learning support and specials and self-directed study. Using this model, more than half the kids in the system will be out of school for 9 days at a time. So if they come down with the virus, I forget the scientific word, but it will show within that time. It incubates, and therefore gives us a better, more likely chance to catch it and keep that child at home.
As we progressed through the fall, Fall River and the country experienced a second surge of COVID infections, much more severe than what we experienced in the spring. Fall River, which saw daily cases in the single digits throughout the summer, now saw cases often over 100. The state stepped back its reopening to Phase 3, Step 1. Government Center again restricted business to appointment only. City Council meetings returned to Zoom, and Fall River schools transitioned to being fully remote for the last few weeks of 2020. When classes resume on January 4th, students will remain in the modified hybrid model for an additional 2 weeks. Fall River began seeing the arrival of the first COVID-19 vaccine in mid-December. As we end the year, Fall River has reported over 7,000 COVID cases and over 200 deaths. numbers we could not have imagined when this all began in March. As the vaccine becomes widespread and more federal assistance arrives to local residents and businesses, we await to see what 2021 will bring with hope. We'll have more at a look back at the news of 2020 right after this.
Here are some job descriptions on the latest hot jobs list from the Mass Hire Fall River Career Center. Social worker, Highland Adult Daycare Incorporated, located at 306 North Main Street, is looking for a part-time social worker with strong interpersonal and writing skills, responsible for care coordination of clients. Job number 143-62678. Front Desk Customer Service, Robinson Supply, located at 195 Broadway, is in need of a full-time front desk customer service associate, responsible for acting as a liaison between customers and companies, and assist with orders, errors, account questions, and billing. Job number 143-58976. Business Analyst, Bank 5, located at 1301 Pleasant Street, is seeking a full-time business analyst to manage the configuration and administration and compliance of the core banking platform. Job number 143-64041. Bristol Community College, located at 777 Ellsbury Street, is in need of the following full and part-time positions. Senior Community Outreach Counselor, job number 143-65030. Career and Technical Training and Professional Development Instructor, job number 143-32055. St. Anne's Hospital, located at 795 Middle Street, also is in need of the following full and part-time positions. Phlebotomy Specimen Processor, job number 143-68643. Registered Nurse Oncology, job number 143-68629. For more information on these or other positions, visit Mass Hire JobQuest at jobquest.dcs.eol.mass.gov or call the Mass Hire Fall River Career Center at 508-730-5000.
Welcome to our look back at what made news in Fall River in 2020. The country once again became the center for racial unrest following the death in May of George Floyd at the hands of Minneapolis police. Protests took place in many cities across the country, most peaceful, but some turning violent. Fall River played host to peaceful demonstrations in early June, allowing for respectful dialogue. At one of the demonstrations, this image was captured by photographer Trevor Santana of a demonstrator, Kendall Dixon, embracing Fall River police officer Edmund Damaris. We wanted to find out more. Officer Damaris was working the detail that day and was impressed by the passion of Dixon and the other demonstrators. The embrace was Officer Damaris' way of showing respect.
Something like this, it's needed. Okay, so people can feel more safe, feel more comfortable. Cops can feel more safe, more comfortable, because I don't know how it feels to be in his shoes. I don't. And I understand, though, from like what you see around the world, that his job is dangerous. And I respect cops. I understand that every day he wakes up, he's not sure if he's going to make it back home. He's not. It's not guaranteed. So I understand where he comes from. I understand where cops come from. Okay? But just like there's some cops, I need to understand where we come from. So that's why I think, like I said, it's important, especially in the city, Fall River, Massachusetts, that we come together and we get connected and we get closer.
Our department is very proactive with the community. We do a lot. We try to be very culturally diverse because Fall River is very diverse. When we grew up here in the schools, we grew up with that diversity. So when we have a residency in this police department, so they hire people within the city, which is very important. It's ownership into this community. So I do think that approaching people, having conversations with them, which I do. I'm assigned to a particular area of the city. I make it a point to step out, talk to business owners, talk to people, get to know people in my neighborhood. They wave, they say hi, I know their children. That's an important factor, being a police officer. It's a factor of trust. It gets people to be more open with you, whether it's a child in need or a person that needs help. Maybe they need help with food, shelter, abuse. You need to be approachable. And in order to be approachable, you need to approach people.
Fall River welcomed a new police chief in 2020. Mayor Paul Coogan accepted the resignation of Police Chief Albert Dupere in late February after he was accused in a television report of drinking at a bar during work hours. Lieutenant Jeffrey Cardoza was appointed by the mayor in May to become the new chief. His appointment was unanimously approved by the city council. Chief Cardoza's first task was to address local concerns of police behavior following the death of George Floyd.
One of the things that we're doing right now as we speak, we've been doing it for the last several days, is we're looking at our use of force policy. And there's a lot of media attention, if you will, a lot of suggestions about a particular program called 8 Can't Wait. And it's 8 things that can be in a use of force policy that will is shown to reduce use of force complaints and deadly force. So we're looking at that. And I've been in a lot of discussions with Mayor Coogan. He has a lot of great ideas. He wants to get a few groups together for some dialogue. We're going to put I had a conversation with him today about putting a panel of officers together to engage in this dialogue. So there's a lot of different things going on. I really think the answer to this, one of the answers I should say, is about relationship building and listening to both sides and having some empathy. And we're all about building bridges and not tearing them down. So we're going to do everything we can to hear what the folks here in Fall River have to say and respond to it accordingly.
Mayor Coogan and Chief Cardoza did host events with the community addressing concerns over discrimination. We will wait to see what is yet to come. The federal corruption, extortion, and conspiracy cases against former Mayor Jaziel Correa and his former Chief of Staff Genevieve Andrade were delayed this year due to the pandemic. Just 2 weeks ago, Ms. Andrade entered into an agreement with prosecutors and changed her plea to guilty. Meanwhile, U.S. District Court Judge Douglas Woodlock has set February 22nd as the trial date for former Mayor Correa, who is facing 13 counts of corruption for cheating investors through his now defunct Snow Owl app company, and 11 counts alleging that he extorted cash in exchange for favorable non-opposition letters to proprietors of potential recreational marijuana facilities. Former Mayor Correa's exploits reached the national stage in April through the release of a 10-part series entitled Run This City, which aired in short segments on the Quibi app. The series provided some insight into the former mayor's dealings during his time in office and how he faced the federal allegations. The show was one of many touted by Quibi during its launch in April. It didn't help as Quibi went out of business in December. In early May, 10 inmates at the ICE detention center at the Bristol County House of Corrections got into an altercation with Sheriff Tom Hodgson and corrections officers. The sheriff said the altercation was the result of corrections personnel responding to a medical call of detainees complaining of COVID-19 symptoms.
Each of them were interviewed by the medical staff, and each of them indicated at least 2 symptoms that were consistent with COVID-19. Having learned that, obviously the immediate requirement for us by CDC standards and also our protocols is to get them out of that unit so they don't contaminate anybody in the event they are positive, and get them down for testing to isolate them all. So the director told me that when they told them that, they said they're not going to go down and get tested. They read the 10 names. The first guy refused. The others just wouldn't get up and come forward. They read the roll the second time of the 10 names. As they were reading it, one of the individuals went over to the telephone at the other end of the unit and was on the phone. After they read the list, I went down and told the individual, along with another officer who was beside me, said, "You need to hang the phone up. Your name's been called." He refused. I told him again, "You need to hang up the phone. Your name's been called." He again refused a second order, at which point I went to grab the receiver from him, and he pulled the receiver over to his left shoulder and put it up near his mouth, like holding it tightly and yelling, "Don't you put your hands on me. Don't you put your hands on me," as though he were being attacked or being, subdued or whatever, which wasn't happening. So at that point, when he did that, he essentially incited a riot.
Investigation into the incident continues, with Attorney General Maura Healey earlier this month issuing a report citing civil rights violations against the sheriff's office. In the 2020 presidential and state election, Fall River voters supported the Democratic Party across the board. There were only a few contested races locally. The one that received the most attention was in the race for the 4th Congressional District, where Congressman Joseph Kennedy was stepping back to challenge incumbent U.S. Senator Ed Markey, a race he eventually lost. 9 Democrats and 2 Republicans entered the race to replace Kennedy, with Democrat Jake Auchincloss coming out on top. State Senator Michael Rodrigues and all 3 state representatives earned re-election, with 8th District State Rep Paul Schmid the only one facing a Republican challenger. The city also backed President-elect Joe Biden, Senator Ed Markey, and 9th District Congressman Bill Keating. Fall River went along with the rest of the state in supporting the Right to Repair ballot initiative and striking down ranked choice voting. City and state budgets became big news in 2020 as the pandemic wreaked havoc with state and local revenue collections. It took until September for the City Council to pass Mayor Coogan's $312 million city budget, while the state legislature earlier this month passed a $46 billion spending plan. Finances will be on the mind of many as the city and state head into next year's budget planning. COVID made city celebrations a bit more restrained in 2020. No large festivals and local parades turned into rolling citywide motorcades. The city also began installation of the replica Vietnam Wall at Bicentennial Park. Dedication is expected early next year. What's 2021 look like? I doubt anyone would venture a guess at this point. We do know that we will continue to deal with the COVID-19 pandemic and the effects of it. We'll inaugurate a new president on January 20th. 2021 is also a local election year. Who will challenge Mayor Paul Coogan and throw their hat in the ring for City Council and School Committee? We'll find out soon enough. Regardless, I'm sure we're all hoping that 2021 is a more calming year than the one we are finishing up. We'll wrap things up right after this.
Hi, welcome to Hot Dogs and Cool Cats. Today we have Calabar. Calabar here, he's about 9 years old. He's a little medium hair here. He is a nice older gentleman. He is more of a, true to his age, I suppose I should say. He pretty much likes to sleep, and he'll come over and he'll seek out attention. So he's still got a little bit of spunk left in him. He does enjoy the company of other cats. We had him in a communal room up until recently. We just did a whole big cleaning. So he's in here in his own private condo for the moment. As you can see, he's trying to steal other cats' food while we got him out. He does like his wet food. As far as people are concerned, ideally he would have no kids in the home. He should just be, older people that can respect the fact that he's getting on in years, and just give him some nice gentle attention. So if you'd like to meet Calabar, you can come down to 300 Linwood Street in Fall River, Massachusetts at Forever Paws Animal Shelter.
Here we have Penelope. Penelope is a 2-year-old tiger tabby. She's very friendly. And she's outgoing, but she's not in your face, all up in your business. She is okay with other cats once she gets to know them a little bit. And she's very sweet and friendly. If you want to meet Penelope, then fill out an application on our website at foreverpaws.com or make an appointment with us at 300 Linwood Street in Fall River. Penelope would really like to meet you.
That's all for this special year-end edition of FRC Media News. I really want to thank our FRC Media staff for going above and beyond this year, adapting to serving all of you while operating a television station remotely. I also want to thank all of you for all your support. We will return for a new edition of FRC Media News on January 7th. For all of us here at FRC Media News, have a happy new year, and we look forward to seeing you all in 2021.